Hello, today I'm going to do the third lesson in my series for object-oriented programming for Java, and I'm going to cover constructors. So I'm going to switch the video off if that's okay with you, and you can see my screen at the moment, so I'm switching off the video. Right, brilliant. Okay, so constructors. Okay, so what is a constructor? So a constructor is a special method. Okay, what is so brilliant about a constructor? Now, the constructor is a method that will run automatically without being called when I make the object of a class. Okay? And the constructor will never run again. It only runs once. Okay? So the constructor will have code in it when I make the object. Automatically, it executes what's in the constructor. That constructor will run automatically when I make the object. When it's completed that run, when it's completed all the code in the constructor, that constructor cannot be called, so I cannot again run the code that's in the constructor. Okay, so let me give you an example. Let's say, for instance, I make a class, and the class has got all the methods in for the snakes and ladder game. Now, what do I want in the constructor? I want in the constructor a welcome screen. So that welcome screen will pop up with like a lovely snake and a lovely ladder and say, welcome to the snakes and ladder game. And then it stops, and then the methods will play automatically, will start playing the game. Okay, so but the intro to the game, the intro to the snakes and ladder game, that I always want to run. I want to run it in the beginning before I start playing the game, and I do not want to run it again. Now that is why I put it in the constructor. So I don't want to be bothered to make a method that's going to be called, and I must call the method before the code runs. The welcome screen to the snakes and ladder, I want it to automatically anyway run. I don't want to think about it. Must I call it? When must I call it? Must it be called, etc. Forget about calling it. Okay, so it's going to run automatically when I make the constructor, and it will not run again because the rule is a constructor cannot be called. Okay, so I'm going to give you another example. In our example, I'm going to use the constructor to set the value or initialize the value of a variable that I can use right throughout all the methods in the class. But I'll come to that in a minute. I want to first show you how to make a constructor. Okay, now I've got here a couple of instructions which you can maybe screenshot or something. So a constructor has got the same name of a class. So here is my class name, carpets, okay, and exactly the same name is used for the constructor. So my constructor, firstly, has exactly the same name as my class. Secondly, it has no return type. There's no return type. It's not going to return anything, okay? And I'm not going to have the word void. It's going to return nothing, and there's no return type. So it's very different from the other methods, because the other methods must have a return type even though it's void, okay? I need a return type for a normal method. For the constructor, I'm not allowed any return type, but it can have all the necessary input parameters it needs, okay? So the rule is the same name as the class, no return type. Also, it's the very, very first method I coded before I code any of the others. It's on top of all my methods, okay, before all their methods, the first one that I code. And yeah, it will only run once. It's auto-executed when I make the object, and I cannot call it again. So I make it by making it at the top, giving it the same name as the class, and there is no return type and no return value. So that is how I make the constructor. Okay, so now I'm going to show you this constructor here. So the constructor has got an input parameter. Okay, now what is the purpose of this constructor? This constructor specifically is used to get the input value, SQM, square meter charge, it needs a value for square meter charge. Why? Because I want that square meter charged to be used in all the methods, okay, or maybe all the methods, but many of the methods, okay. So can you see here at the bottom, I've got square meter charge and square meter charge. That variable is used in two different methods, okay. Now, I want to save myself the effort to, for every one of the methods that uses that variable, okay, I don't want to like have the effort of typing that variable as an input parameter and maintain input parameters. Okay, so make it easier for myself. So I don't have to put input parameter in all the different methods. Okay, it's too much. I don't want to do that. It's effort. Okay, no effort for me. Thanks. Okay, now I'm only going to get that input parameter coming into my class via the constructor. And the constructor is going to take this local variable, because that variable, the input parameter, is only valid within the curly brackets of my constructor. When the constructor is finished running, this variable loses its value because of the scope of this particular variable. So what I do is I transfer the value of my input parameter into a variable that's got larger scope. Okay, and then that will enable all the other methods to reach the value or to use the value of that class variable. Okay, so can you see I've got here my curly brackets for the class. Okay, so here's my class. Okay, so there's my class. Now, if I highlight for you all the methods, okay, can you see double square meter charge? It's outside all the methods and also outside the constructor. That makes, it gives this double square meter charge a scope of its own curly brackets where it's in. So it's valid anywhere in the class. Inside all my methods, I can use it. Okay, so by putting a value into this particular variable right here, then I can use that variable everywhere. Okay, so I started with a value of 0 for square meter charge. Now the constructor gets an input value. That input value is put into this square meter charge, which is then used everywhere. That is the purpose of the constructor. It gets a value in, and then that value is then used everywhere. Now I just want to show you something here. Can you see this word this? Okay. Now, why do I need this? Well, I don't need it. If, let's say I had a variable, let's say A. As you know, a value can have a variable name can be anything. Okay. So if I had a different variable name, okay, A gets a value when I make the object of this class. A is going to go into square meter charge, and square meter charge has got a larger scope. Square meter charge can be referred to from within all the other methods. Okay, so because A is different from square meter charge, the two variable names are different. I don't need this. I don't need this keyword. I can take it off. The computer has got no confusion. Okay, the computer knows square meter charge is that one and A is that one. Okay, so there's no confusion. However, if somebody had used the same variable name, which is sort of like what many people do when they code this type of thing, they like to use the same variable names for the two variables. Okay, so then in that case, I've got to use this because I've got two variable names that's exactly the same. The one is only valid within the constructor, and the other one is valid everywhere within the class. So to differentiate between the two, to explain, okay, which one is which one, I use this dot for the class variable that is outside, that's got the larger scope. It's to differentiate between them. You see, if I take this off, it's seen as the same one. So the same one gets the same one. So then this one has still got the value of 0. but I want to put this stuff there so the computer understands, okay, this one and that one is different. Put the value of the brown square meter charge into the blue square meter charge, and that shoots the value downwards. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to use this class. I'm going to save them all. Okay, so now I'll go to my run class, and what have I done here? I've made an object of my class. I make the object. When I make the object, here in the brackets of where I make the object, I've got to take a value. That value goes into the round brackets. Okay, that value in the round brackets of where I make my object, that value in the round brackets where I make my object, that goes to the constructor of this class. It will only go to the constructor. That's how I get a value into the constructor of my class. Okay, so that 5 goes to the class, it goes to the constructor, this variable here, and it's then transferred to that one. Okay, so that is how I give a value to the constructor. When I make my object, I give a value in the brackets, that value goes to the constructor. Okay, and that's it. You see how simple it is, as simple as pie, as easy, like as we say, Java's for babies.